Howdy folks, Matt here with Gulf Coast Fit, and I'm about to run through a Bulgarian bag circuit. I'm going to do 2 sets of everything. The first set is kind of a warm-up set to feel it out, grease the groove, work on the mechanics, the breathing, the synergistic effects of having something in my hand while I'm having to engage a long kinetic chain of muscles all the way down to the ground in everything I do. It's something I really like about the Bulgarian bag is that it's very dynamic in nature. And it keeps me on my toes mentally and physically. So first set's a little lighter, second set's a little easier. You can follow along and do a circuit like this. I'm going to put things in order, in an order that I feel would be conducive for optimal performance on all of them, taking into account the demands of each exercise, the technicalities and complexities, what may be the limiting factor as far as energy systems or muscle groups, all the typical stuff you would take into consideration when you're doing any type of a circuit. So I'm going to get started with some pendulum swings. Now, all these exercises might have different names. I'm just going to tell you what I call them. Pendulum swings, light set. I'll go to 20 reps. Here we go. I'm taking a reverse grip just for fun. You can go overhand or underhand. It's all in the hips. Transverse movement. Not rocking side to side, staying upright, letting the hips do the work. Really working with the Bulgarian bag here. It's pretty much just doing its thing as long as I sync up with it at the right time. All right. I'm gonna keep my rest breaks down. Me personally, I want to get just a little bit of a conditioning effect out of this. It's more for technique practice than anything. But I'm gonna keep my rest breaks down under a minute. Now I'm going to move up to a bag that's about twice as heavy, maybe 40 pounds. And what I'm going to focus on is loading, decelerating, and accelerating with the obliques, both the external and anterior obliques. Internal and external obliques. I'm going to flip my grip over. I like to use different grips, so I'm going to go overhand grip now. Give you a different view. Watch the hips. Notice how I let my feet pivot a little bit, help protect the knees so you're not torquing your knees inappropriately. So moving right along, I'm going to do a rotation walk. Another transverse movement, only I'm decelerating from front to back rather than side to side in the frontal plane. But it does involve and around twisting. Notice how I sync my step up with the swing. Opposite leg, opposite leg. Key there is to really sync up your step, your stride, with the swing. When your foot hits the ground, it should be swinging by you. So you have a locked in kinetic chain and you can decelerate effectively with the core. The arms just hold on to the bag like a rope. So don't get too armsy with it. It's really coming from the core. Hips and trunk. I'm gonna hang on to it a different way, again, because I like different grips. I'm gonna hold the straps this time. Try not to get pulled around by this. Oh yeah. obliques. Pulling me around a little bit, but that's the challenge. So again, make sure you're not being yanked around by the bag. Stay upright, try not to lean forward, don't let it jerk you down. Don't get too armsy trying to swing it around. The arms are just like pieces of rope holding onto it. Your obliques and your stride takes you through the exercise. All right, moving right along, I'm gonna do a squat swing. It's kind of like a kettlebell swing in reverse. As the weight swings away from you, you squat. As it swings through your legs, you get a big hamstring stretch. Watch how my hips go up and down, and my torso pretty much pivots like there's an axis of rotation. That's very important here. You can see that pivot, that axis of rotation. Switch my grip over. 10 more. Woo. Like a lot of exercises, what I really appreciate about that is that it's half exercise, kind of half stretch in a sense. As I swing through my legs, I get a big hamstring stretch as I load the backside, the posterior. When I squat, I drop down, I load my quads, so I can feel it stretching, flexing, stretching, flexing. Notice how I switched my grip halfway through after 10 reps. I think a side view is best so you see this. Doggy. Let this truck go by real quick. Yeah, have a good one, man. That one really got my heart rate up a lot more, and that's to be expected. That's why I didn't put it in the beginning of the circuit. I'm gradually ramping things up. So what I'm gonna do now that my core body temperature as a whole is much more elevated, I'm gonna go into some shoulder work. I did warm up with Indian clubs, but that was kind of a pre-warm up. Now I'll do my warm up set of halos. It's all about mobilizing the scapulas. Here we go. I want my elbows to move freely, allowing the bag to use momentum, build velocity, and carry itself around. About 10 each way. Make sure you get a smooth transition. You don't want to stop abruptly and try to yank in the opposite direction. It's okay to let your hips and torso move a little bit. Gives your upper body joints a little bit more room to work with. All right. Probably 10 or so on each side. Exercises like this involving a lot of shoulder joints, a lot of scapular mobilization. I wouldn't put it first while you're cold. I'm good and heated up after those other exercises, even though it's cold out here. So now I feel comfortable doing that without tweaking my shoulders. So do no harm. That's what training's all about. Now this is actually going to be pretty darn tough for me, so I'm going to shut up and I need to focus. One bad rep on something like this with a heavy weight is no good.
This is totally crazy. Last night there was an explosion at an apartment complex in St. Pete. Turns out somebody was making drugs inside one of the units and they had to evacuate the entire building. Wow, it's US 103.5.
Whew. It wasn't easy, but it felt fluid enough and like I was working with the bag enough to keep going through that. If you feel any tweaky reps, stop right there, recommit and start over. Take a few breaths. Woo. One working set is plenty on something like that. I got through that all right. Wasn't as smooth as it could be or will be in the future. And even though I've done this many times, always room for improvement. Would have gave that set probably a 6 out of 10, in my opinion. All right, moving right along. Going to do a snatch, Bulgarian bag snatch, plus reverse lunge combination. So I do one snatch through the legs to overhead, lock it out, stabilize overhead, 2 reverse lunges, and so on. If you can remember, try to switch which foot you lead with on the reverse lunges each time. Going to 10 reps through, which is kind of like 30 reps because every repetition is 3 movements. Try to keep the bag off your head. Now I might be forgetting which leg to do each time. Cool. So that was the first strength dominant exercise so far, where I was doing something strictly muscular, not using velocity and momentum, inertia with the bag, except on the snatches. The reverse lunges, more of a strength movement, controlled and muscular. And since that encompassed upper body, midsection, and lower body, that definitely spiked my heart rate a lot. Take a few more long, deep yogi breaths, make them last as long as possible. Try to keep these breaks under a minute. And I hit my heavy set. Tearing my feet up a little bit when I grab my oil pad. Hopefully I don't step off the mat. Here we go. That's what happens when you cut corners. Take your time. Focus on the task at hand. Nelly, yeah, doggy. Doesn't help to bend over like this, but I want to talk to you about what's going on. So, when something like that takes full concentration from hands to toes, focus on the movement that you're executing. Don't look ahead, stay present in the rep. Think about mechanically what joints are in action and then what muscles are working. Something like that. It's always transitioning from one set of muscle groups or joint actions to another. All right, I'm gonna go back to my walking rotation swings, but I'm gonna add a lunge into it. So adding a bigger element of lower body, quads, and glutes, and even more synchronicity to have fun with. You know what, I changed my mind. Again, I want to be mindful of performance. So I'm going to switch to more upper body and core. Let my heart rate get down a little bit more before I go into something bigger and more complex. Always be mindful of your energy systems and what you need to change on the fly for optimal performance. Keyword optimal, not maximal. Doesn't do as much good to redline and go maximal very often at all. Oh, Gus is running away. He's only got 2 legs, but he'll still get where he wants to go. Especially when he's in his wheelchair. And I can talk to you during that set, still focus and feel what's going on. But now I'm gonna shut up, make sure this is fluid. When I'm swinging 40 or so pounds around like that, things need to be fluid, smooth, and on point. I'll turn around so you can see what's going on the back side. Hold on, Bub, I'll be right there. That was all right. Timing started to get off a little bit. You have to anticipate the bag coming in front, swinging in front of you, and start to initiate the hip swivel, the transverse movement with the obliques, hips, glutes. So I like swinging a bat, throwing a punch, doing a shot put, or anything where you're twisting, which is a lot of athletic things. So that was good. I'd give it a 6 out of 10. This is gonna be my second to last exercise. Ramping it back up, doing those rotation swings with the lunge, rotation lunge swing. Where you trying to go, bud? You lay down right here? There you go. Good boy. I'm gonna go right into the heavy bag here. I'm gonna choose to only do 1 set. In this case, doing an entire warm-up set would take away from the heavy set. Pre-fatigue those muscles too much. Oh, every single rep is a challenge there when it involves both intensity, how heavy you're going, and that many working parts at the same time. Felt all right. About probably 75% of the reps felt okay. Again, I skipped the first lighter set because I would have kind of fatigued that movement to the detriment of that heavier set. And I wanted to get that heavy set in. All right, last exercise I'm gonna do. It's another around the world swing like I just did, but off axis. So instead of straight up and around in the frontal plane, I'm gonna start to come front to back. A little more transverse movement involved. So you see I'll stand sideways so you see how it's off axis. And I really like to get the hips into this, make it a full body kind of gyrating hula hoop type of exercise. Get all the vertebrae moving, creating some space, blood flow, articulation. Should feel good. I will do a warm-up set on this. Boy, that was still really tough. I know I can handle the heavier set, but I'm gonna really try to loosen the hips up. Essentially the hips and the shoulders are kind of going in opposite directions of each other, or the bag and your hips. And that's to help protect your shoulders so you have more movement coming from below, which gives you a little bit more of a safety net as far as not overstressing the shoulders up above. All right, this is set of the day. Cherry on top set. Stand on the oil mat here.
Rates apply in this nationwide contest. That's money to 200-200. Filing your taxes with Tax Act.
How's it going, man? Good, how you doing? Good, good. How about yourself? Not too bad, not the best. Probably 7 out of 10. Again, work on the articulation, work on the fluidity, rhythm, and timing. First finesse, then intensity. So give those a go. I think that's a fine order to put that sequence in, to keep in mind safety first and performance. So ask me questions. Catch you next time.